Friends, pray with me. God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations in all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight. Amen. Well, I may have to do a little improv here. You know, this parable of the Good Samaritan, it has a lot of moral resonance. It's well known by everyone. There are hundreds of organizations, Samaritan's Inn, Samaritan's Purse, Samaritan's Health Services that offer food and shelter and compassion to those in need. But the story is often more provocative, as we might realize, as you just heard. You see, parables are supposed to make us uncomfortable. New Testament scholar Charles Dodd said if you hear a parable and you think you understand it and you agree with it, you probably missed the point. Parables are like a story bomb. It's meant to challenge our assumptions. For example, laborers come to a vineyard, some in the morning, and others have to come in the middle of the day, and some at the end. At the end of the day, they all get paid the same. Well, that's not fair. Well, it forces us to consider grace, divine generosity, a reversal of the world's merit systems. Well, I think from our introduction, you can see how provocative this parable can be, but I want to put it a little bit in context of its own time to see why it might have been so aggravating to the first listener. So a lawyer comes in, he's going to debate with Jesus a little bit, and he's the perfect foil for the parable. He says, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" It's such a lawyer's question. Any lawyers here today? Okay, my condolences. We need good lawyers, don't we? We do. So notice that the lawyer, he doesn't say, "What's the secret of life?" Or "Tell me what the good life is," or "What must I do at the end to make my way to heaven?" He wants to know how to inherit heaven. Because this is what lawyers do. They figure out who's supposed to inherit what, right? When the deceased is gone, who gets the house and the rare coin collection and the furniture, right? So, what do you have to do to inherit? Well, generally, you need to be related. The closer, the better. The closer you are in line to the good stuff. So what does the lawyer want here? Is he trying to get a better spot in God's last will and testament? A better place in line? Well, like a good rabbi, Jesus answers a question with a question. Well, what do the scriptures say? What's the most important commandment? And everybody knows the answer to this. They know the great commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's the perfect merger of Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Jesus said that's the greatest commandment. It was there in the Old Testament. But you know, lawyers are trained to push a little bit and find out exactly what the limits are here. Who is my neighbor? You get the sense that he wants to debate a little bit. Show how smart he is, maybe show Jesus up. Or, you know, there's always somebody that wants to play devil's advocate. When somebody does that with me, I say, "Fine, you're the devil." So, it's really kind of a tricky question. Who do you consider your neighbor? How many blocks before they're not your neighbor? Do you stop at the city limit, the state line, the national border? Do you stop at human life forms? or include animals? Is a person's race or gender identity or their political affiliation entering into your calculation of who is neighbor? If they're all my neighbor, do I have to send money every time Save the Children comes on TV? Do I have to love all 6 billion people sharing the planet? I mean, maybe the lawyer's just looking for a little advice here. This is not easy. Just friends and family? Just Christians? Just Americans? Just patriotic Americans? Can I just pick my top 10? And maybe one person I don't like? That's pretty good. Jesus isn't about to get sucked into a legal debate with a lawyer. So he tells a story. You know the story. Man beaten beside the road, left for dead, robbed, stripped, the whole works. It's as bad as it can get. And thank God a priest comes along. Just kidding. He walks by the other side. Levite, same thing, other side of the road. Why did they go to the other side, the complete opposite side away from the man? Well, possibly because if they had contact, if he was dead, and they had contact with a dead body, they were ritually defiled for an entire week and they couldn't do their job. So really, Jesus is delivering quite a critique on this kind of ritualistic legal morality that's staying pure but not showing mercy, not helping, not lending a hand. He's really coming after the religious establishment here, but here comes the lightning bolt. Who's the hero? Who comes in and saves the day? Well, let's talk about who the Samaritans are. Samaria had been the northern kingdom of Israel. It split off from the south where Jerusalem is around 930 BCE, kind of around the end of the Davidic dynasty. And they didn't like the Davidic dynasty, so they split off. They made their own temple. Rumor has it they put a golden calf in it. We know how bad golden calves are, right? Of course, that might have been just propaganda from the south. Later, they're invaded by Assyria, and the two regions have conflict for 9 centuries. There's been wars fought and raids, and you might envision it as kind of like the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. These are siblings that have fought each other for centuries. So, you can change around the characters depending on when you tell the story and where you tell it. If you tell it in Boston, you might say, a Yankees fan came along and he actually helped the guy, if you could believe that. Or you can say 2 evangelical pastors walked on by on the other side of the road and along comes a drag queen on the way to her show and she helped him. Or it was the tired Mexican farm worker who stopped, knowing that he might be involved in a crime scene and he could get deported, but he still helped. Or you could say 2 people go by and they've got their rainbow flags and their Free Palestine button, and they say, oh, look, another example of the system failing this man, and they walk on by, and it's the guy in the red MAGA hat that saves him. And if any of these scenarios you say, well, that'll never happen, well, that's the point. Whoever you put in that category of morally the other who would never do the right thing, the depraved person is the hero, and your side failed in its moral obligation. That's where Jesus is going. Who is neighbor to this man, he asks, and even a lawyer could get it. The one who showed mercy. Go and do likewise, Jesus says. And I think he means more than just helping one person in trouble. Most suffering isn't right out in the middle of the road for us to see. He calls us to an act of mercy, one that looks at why there might be crime on the road to Jerusalem, or why there isn't adequate health care. The Good Samaritan pays attention when there is prejudice or racism in society. Instead of asking, who is my neighbor, the Good Samaritan says, you're my neighbor. Or maybe, won't you be my neighbor? So I want to conclude with a note from the world of jazz and our next song, which is Isfahan. The Duke Ellington Band performed this song written by Billy Strayhon, and it was written because the band had been global ambassadors traveling around the Middle East. They went to Iran, and Duke Ellington loved the city of Isfahan. He called it a city of poets. It's a World Heritage Site today. And this whole program of jazz ambassadors, it was actually created through the State Department. It was President Dwight Eisenhower's idea. He believed that during the Cold War, this struggle with the Soviet Union wasn't just a physical battle. He thought it was a cultural struggle. And he wanted to show that the United States was on the side of liberty, of justice, and equality. But we had a problem: systematic segregation and racism. And this was undermining our standing throughout the world as trying to be a force for freedom and for justice. And so Eisenhower wanted to send jazz musicians out as goodwill ambassadors, especially because jazz was immensely popular in the world then. Interesting, authoritarian regimes often ban jazz. I mean, we understand why the Nazis did, because you couldn't have non-white music. But it was banned in the USSR as well. They said, that's decadent, depraved capitalist music. I don't know. You guys seem all right. Of course, top Soviet officials smuggled in all the jazz records they could find. They loved it. So in 1957, they invite Louis Armstrong to go to the Soviet Union, but just as they invite him, Little Rock, Arkansas, 9 black students try to go into the schools, have been ordered to desegregate after Brown versus the Board of Education. The governor of Arkansas sends the National Guard to stop the students from entering the school. Can you imagine calling out the National Guard for something so frivolous? So, why are you laughing? So, Louis Armstrong talks back to the State Department and he says, if this is how you're going to treat my people, he says, hell no, I'm not going. So this, and I got to tell you, so the Voice of America, after this happened, they sent out a press release and they said, this shows the strength of freedom of speech in America, because a black man can criticize the president and we didn't throw him in jail. And as Wikipedia put it, a weak hand, but well played. So after that, a lot of jazz musicians, they began to speak out more because of the way Louis Armstrong had spoken up, and they began to use their music and their voices, and indeed, America began to move forward, began to uphold civil rights, and the federal government supported it. And so the tour did happen, and Duke Ellington not only went to the Middle East, but his music was influenced by it. He was influenced by the people. He saw the poetry of society in Iran. He came back to the United States with new music to share a message of peace back with us. You know, you can't be a neighbor if you never meet your neighbor. You have to try their food. You got to hear their music. Jazz shows us how to cross borders with curiosity and compassion. So does mercy. Jesus said, "Go and do likewise." So let's pick up the rhythm. Let's hear Isfahan.